My brother receives the most sincere care from my parents, when they wipe me away like dirt. So I have no interest in the family cruise and skip it. To my surprise, they go crazy. I don't know when it started, the feeling that my brother Adam and I were living in two separate families. Maybe it was back in high school when I first noticed the clear split in how we were treated. Adam had been caught selling pills, no big deal, just a rough phase he was going through. I, on the other hand, got caught smoking weed, and suddenly it was like I'd burned the house down. My parents, Beth and Richard, threatened to kick me out so fast it made my head spin. At that point, I realized Adam could set the world on fire, and my parents would hand him a blanket and tell him he was just experimenting. Me? I could strike a match, and they'd call the fire department. As years passed, this gap only grew wider. Adam, the so-called golden child, dropped out of college not once but 3 times. Each time, my parents brushed it off like it was a gust of wind on a calm afternoon. He's still finding himself, they'd say. Meanwhile, I graduated college a semester late, and they scolded me for not trying hard enough. My accomplishments never seemed to be enough. By the time I turned 22 in 2020, I landed my first real job as a technical writer. I was so proud of myself, but that moment didn't last long. My parents immediately kicked me off their health insurance. It was like a reward for independence. I'd proven I could handle myself, so they cut me off completely. Meanwhile, Adam stayed on their insurance until he turned 26 just last year, 4 extra years of being treated like a child while I was forced to stand on my own 2 feet, whether I was ready or not. Over time, the imbalance became impossible to ignore. Adam lived in Colorado, still in the same state where he had dropped out of college. He didn't work, didn't go to school, and yet my parents sent him money for rent, bills, and necessities. What did he do with this help? Oh, he bought himself a $22,000 dog. I remember sitting in my small apartment, budgeting for groceries, while listening to my mom gush about Adam's new German Shepherd Max. The worst of it was when I got laid off at 24 in early 2023. The company downsized, and I couldn't afford rent anymore. I had no choice but to move back home to Oklahoma City. I felt like a failure even before my parents made it worse. After months of job hunting, I landed a new role in May 2023. The day I proudly told them about my new position, they blindsided me by saying I owed them $10,000 in back rent. You read that right, $10,000. It wasn't like we'd ever discussed rent when I moved in. My parents had said I could stay until I got back on my feet. I contributed to groceries and did freelance work to help where I could, but suddenly they decided I owed them for every month I'd been there. I knew pushing back would only make things worse. Beth and Richard never responded well to confrontation, so I paid. I worked my tail off, saved every penny I could, and finished paying them by September 2023, just before moving in with my boyfriend Tom. That's the thing about my parents. They never asked Adam for anything, not even when he drained their savings for his failed college attempts. But me? The second I had a stable job, they were ready to wring me dry. I can still hear my mom saying, "We're just motivating you to be independent, Sarah." I wanted to scream. I already was independent. I always had been. Then came the final straw, the cruise. It was late September when my parents announced their grand plan for a family vacation. A cruise, they said. A beautiful, week-long holiday over Thanksgiving. I remember the way my mom's face lit up as she talked about all the fun we'd have, how great it would be for Adam and his girlfriend Laura to join us. Then she looked at me and said, "Since you have a good job now, you can buy your own ticket." The words hit me like cold water. I was stunned. "Wait, you're paying for everyone else but not me?" I asked. "Adam's still finding his way," my mom said, as if she'd rehearsed it, "and Laura's family isn't well off. You can afford it, Sarah. It's not like you'd need a fancy room anyway." Not a fancy room. That was their justification, as if I should be grateful just to be on the boat, wedged into some windowless cabin like an afterthought. I wanted to point out the hypocrisy. If the rooms didn't matter, why was Adam getting a suite? Why wasn't he footing his own bill if he was still finding himself at nearly 30 years old? I argued. Of course, it wasn't about the money. I could afford the ticket. It was about fairness. But fairness doesn't exist in my family, not when it comes to Adam. My mom shook her head and said, "Green isn't a good look on you, Sarah." Green. Jealousy. I hate that word more than anything. It's always their go-to, like my frustration is unreasonable, like my feelings are invalid just because I refuse to swallow their blatant favoritism. I walked out of their house that night, fuming. Tom, who's been my rock through everything, told me to skip the trip. "You don't owe them this," he said. And for the first time, I agreed with him. So, I made a decision, I wasn't going. The weeks leading up to Thanksgiving were filled with silence. My parents assumed I'd change my mind. They always do. They think I'm too weak to stand up to them, too scared to rock the boat, but this time I let them believe it. I didn't tell them I wasn't coming. I kept quiet while they finalized plans, booked hotel rooms, and talked about all the excursions they'd be doing. It wasn't until the night before the trip that they texted me, "Be here by 8 a.m., so we can drive to New Orleans." "Don't be late," my dad wrote. I stared at the message, my chest tight. Then I sent my reply. "Since you didn't think I was worth the effort to include, I'll be spending Thanksgiving with Tom's family instead. Have a great trip with your favorite child." Then I muted the group chat. For the first time in years, I felt like I had power. Like I was choosing myself over their impossible expectations. Tom's family had invited me to their cabin in Arkansas for Thanksgiving, and I decided to go. I didn't owe my parents anything, not an apology, not my money, and certainly not my time. When I told Tom about the text, he smiled and kissed my forehead. "Good for you," he said. I wish I could say it felt good. It didn't, not yet anyway. There's something about standing up to your parents that leaves a pit in your stomach, even when you know you're right. But I was so tired of being their afterthought. I was done being second place. The morning of the cruise was quiet in my apartment, a strange stillness settled over everything, like the calm before a storm. I sipped my coffee, staring at my muted phone. I knew they'd start messaging soon, asking where I was and reminding me that the car was leaving in half an hour. I half expected my dad to call and ask if I needed gas money for the drive. At 8:15, my phone vibrated on the counter. I let it buzz, watching it light up like a firefly against the granite. "Where are you? It's past 8. We're waiting." I could almost hear my mom's impatient sigh, see her glancing at the clock, shaking her head. By 8:30, my dad had joined in with his usual no-nonsense tone. "Sarah, we are leaving for the port in 10 minutes. You need to hurry up." I'd spent years jumping through their hoops, scrambling to meet expectations they didn't hold for Adam. I could picture my brother, carefree and smiling, half asleep in the back seat of the car. He probably didn't even know or care that I wasn't coming. Tom walked into the kitchen, rubbing the sleep from his eyes. "They text you yet?" he asked, pouring himself a cup of coffee. "Of course they did," I said. "They'll figure it out soon enough." He gave me a look, the one that said, "I'm proud of you, but I know this is hard," and it was. As much as I wanted to feel triumphant, I couldn't. My chest was heavy, like someone had pressed a brick against my heart. "Do you think I'm being petty?" I asked him suddenly. He sat down across from me, his voice calm and steady. "Sarah, they made this choice. You're just showing them what it feels like to be left out. But they're my parents. I shouldn't." Tom leaned forward, resting his elbows on the table. "Your parents treat Adam like he walks on water and act like you're a burden. You've bent over backward for them your whole life. You are not being petty, you're setting a boundary." I nodded, though the ache in my stomach refused to go away. The group chat started buzzing again, their texts growing more frantic. Finally, I picked up my phone, typed a single message, and hit send. "Since you didn't put in the effort to include me, I will be attending Thanksgiving with Tom's family instead. Have a great trip with your favorite child." Then I muted the chat and put the phone face down on the table. Tom smiled faintly. "You're allowed to put yourself first, Sarah. I just hoped it would start to feel like it." That afternoon, we packed up Tom's car for the drive to his family's cabin. His mom, Linda, had invited me months ago, almost as an afterthought. "If you're free for Thanksgiving, we'd love to have you join us," she had said over the phone. At the time, I brushed it off, assuming I'd be with my own family. It felt strange now, like the universe had known all along. As we drove through winding back roads toward the cabin, I felt the tension in my chest begin to ease. The landscape opened up around us, the bare trees of late November reaching for the pale sky like bony fingers. I stared out the window, letting the silence wrap around me like a blanket. "Are you okay?" Tom asked after a while. "I will be," I said softly. I didn't know if that was the truth, but I wanted it to be. Tom's family welcomed us with open arms as soon as we pulled into the driveway. His mom stepped out onto the porch with a bright smile and a wave. Linda was one of those people who made you feel at ease the moment you met her, like a warm fire on a freezing night. "Sarah," she called, coming down the steps to hug me. "I'm so glad you're here." I smiled, hugging her back. "Thank you for having me." "Of course. We're thrilled to have you join us. Tom, grab her bags and get inside before you both freeze." The cabin was cozy, the smell of roasting turkey and freshly baked pies hanging in the air like a comforting memory. Tom's dad, Paul, was in the kitchen basting the turkey, while Tom's younger cousins ran circles around the living room. I couldn't remember the last time I'd walked into a family gathering and felt welcome, like I belonged. Linda handed me a glass of wine and smiled warmly. "Your family here, Sarah. Relax and enjoy yourself." It was the simplest thing, but it nearly brought tears to my eyes. The next day, Thanksgiving morning, Tom and I woke up early to help with preparations. His mom put us in charge of setting the table while she and Paul tackled the cooking. The house buzzed with energy, laughter, music, the clatter of dishes. It was chaotic in the best way, like a scene from a movie I'd always wanted to be part of. As Tom folded napkins into neat triangles, I caught myself smiling. "What?" he asked, grinning at me. "Nothing," I said. "It's just nice being here." He reached over and squeezed my hand. "You deserve this, Sarah." After dinner, we headed outside to play cornhole with Tom's cousins. I was terrible, of course. My aim was as accurate as a blindfolded toddler throwing darts. But nobody cared. When I missed the board completely for the third time, Tom doubled over laughing. "You're hopeless," he teased, wrapping an arm around my shoulder. "I'm trying my best," I said, laughing along with him. His cousin Ellie, who couldn't have been older than 12, piped up from across the yard. "You're doing great, Sarah. My mom says it's about having fun, not winning." I smiled. "I'll take it." That evening, we sat around the fire pit, wrapped in blankets and sipping hot cocoa. Linda passed around marshmallows for roasting, and I watched the flames dance in front of me, feeling more at peace than I had in years. Tom's family treated me like one of their own. Nobody questioned my place here or made me feel like an outsider. For once, I didn't feel like I had to prove myself to anyone. Toward the end of the night, as we sat staring at the glowing embers, Linda turned to me with a soft smile. "Sarah, I know this is ultimately up to Tom, but I hope you'll join our family for real someday." Her words caught me off guard, and my cheeks flushed with warmth. "I would be honored," I said softly, and I meant it. That night, as Tom and I lay in bed, I stared up at the ceiling, feeling lighter than I had in a long time. "Thank you for bringing me here," I whispered. Tom rolled onto his side and looked at me. "You're welcome. But you don't have to thank me, Sarah. You belong here." I blinked back tears, his words sinking in like rain after a drought. I belonged here. I didn't have to fight for a place at the table or beg for scraps of affection. I was enough, just as I was. For the first time in my life, I felt free. I woke up the Saturday after Thanksgiving feeling lighter than I had in months. Tom's family made everything seem so simple: laughter, food, warmth, and no expectation beyond just showing up and being present. I hadn't realized how starved I was for that kind of love. The kind you don't have to earn. The drive back to Dallas was peaceful. The trees outside blurred into streaks of gold and brown as we talked about everything and nothing, future hikes we wanted to go on, Christmas plans, how terrible I was at cornhole. I laughed more in those few hours than I had all year. But that lightness didn't last long. When we got back to my apartment, I finally picked up my phone. I hadn't checked it all weekend, and I almost regretted turning it back on. The group chat had exploded, dozens of unread messages, photos, and even a few missed calls. I stared at the screen as it lit up with notifications. There were pictures from the cruise. One of Adam and Laura on the ship's deck, the ocean stretched out behind them like an endless blue dream. Another of my parents, sunburned and smiling, drinks in hand. Then came the texts. "Sad that you chose not to be with your family in such beautiful places." I could almost hear my dad's voice in those words, calm, measured, with just the slightest hint of judgment. It was the kind of message that made me feel guilty without him ever saying the words outright. I scrolled further and found a text from my mom. "You should have been there. I hope you realize what you missed out on." What I missed out on? I thought. What about what they missed? What about how they had treated me, like I didn't matter enough to include in the first place? I sat on the edge of the couch, my face hot as I reread the messages over and over again. Tom noticed immediately. He sat down next to me, wrapping his arm around my shoulders. "What did they say?" I held up the phone so he could see. "Same old story," I said quietly. "I should feel bad for missing out, not the other way around." Tom sighed. "You don't have to justify your choices to them, Sarah." "I know," I said, though I didn't really feel like I knew anything. My mom's name lit up my phone a few minutes later. I thought about ignoring the call, but a small part of me, the part that still craved their approval, picked up. "Where were you?" she said immediately. Her voice wasn't angry, but it wasn't soft either. It was sharp, like a question with only one acceptable answer. I told you, I replied, trying to keep my voice steady. I spent the holiday with Tom's family. You could have told us sooner, Sarah, she said. Do you know how cruel it was for you to let us believe you were coming and then just not show up? I closed my eyes, trying to keep my frustration from bubbling over. Mom, you told me to buy my own ticket. You didn't make me feel like I was part of the plan. Her tone turned defensive. We told you because you can afford it. It's not like you're struggling, Sarah. Adam and Laura needed the help. And I didn't? I asked, my voice shaking now, even though I hated that it was. Mom, I've spent my whole life having to earn everything. You've handed Adam everything on a silver platter, and I'm the one who gets called ungrateful. That's not fair, Sarah, she snapped. Adam needs help right now. You've always been independent. You don't understand how hard it is for him. I felt like she had slapped me. The old, familiar frustration clawed its way up my throat, but I swallowed it down. I'm independent because you never gave me a choice, I said quietly. There was a long silence on her end. Finally, she said, I'm not going to apologize for raising a strong daughter. You should be grateful for everything we've done for you. Grateful. That word was like sandpaper on my skin. I had spent my entire life being grateful, for scraps of love, for expectations I could never meet, for family vacations I wasn't invited to unless I paid my own way. I couldn't hold it in any longer. I guess I'll just leave you alone, I said. Since I'll never be enough for this family anyway. I hung up before she could respond, and the tears finally spilled over. I buried my face in my hands, my whole body shaking. Tom was there instantly, sitting next to me and pulling me into his arms. It's okay, he whispered. You're okay. But I didn't feel okay. It didn't matter how many times Tom told me I was enough. There was a hole in my chest that only my parents could fill, and I knew they never would. I spent the rest of the evening curled up on the couch with Tom, a pint of ice cream between us. We watched old movies, trying to distract ourselves from the heaviness of it all. I let myself laugh when Tom quoted the cheesy dialogue, though the tears kept threatening to return. By the time I went to bed, I felt empty. The next morning, I woke up early for work. My phone was silent, no texts, no missed calls. My parents had gone quiet, which was somehow worse than their anger. I had a feeling they were waiting for me to apologize, to admit that I had overreacted, just like I always had before. But this time, I wasn't going to. At work, I threw myself into my tasks, using the distraction to keep from thinking about everything that had happened. I edited technical manuals, sent emails, and pretended like nothing was wrong. My coworkers asked about my Thanksgiving, and I gave them the same answer every time. It was nice. I spent it with Tom's family. I didn't tell them about the fight with my parents. I didn't tell them about the photos, the texts, or the phone call that ended with me crying on the couch. The truth was, I was ashamed. Ashamed of how badly I still wanted their approval, even after everything they had put me through. That night, Tom and I sat on the balcony of my apartment, watching the city lights blink in the distance. I don't know why it's so hard, I said finally. Because they're your parents, Tom replied. You want them to love you the way you deserve. That's not a bad thing, Sarah. But what if they never will, I whispered. Tom was quiet for a moment before he said, then maybe you have to stop asking for it. His words hit me like a punch to the gut because I knew he was right. I had spent my entire life begging for something my parents weren't capable of giving me. Maybe it was time to stop. But I wasn't ready yet. The next morning, I woke up to a text from my mom. We need to talk before Christmas. Let us know when you're free. I stared at the message for a long time before putting my phone back down. Christmas. I knew what that meant. They didn't want to explain my absence to the rest of the family. They'd want me to play nice, smile for pictures, and pretend like nothing had happened. But I wasn't sure if I could do that anymore. The weeks leading up to Christmas felt heavier than I expected. My mom's text about needing to talk lingered in the back of my mind like a weight I couldn't put down. I ignored it at first, hoping they'd just let it go. But I knew my parents. They weren't the kind of people who could stand unresolved tension, especially if it meant they might look bad in front of the rest of the family. By mid-December, I hadn't replied, and the messages started coming in again. This time, my dad joined in. We can't just leave things like this, Sarah. Family means something. Let us know when we can talk. Family means something. I sat with those words for a while, repeating them in my head like a broken record. What did family mean to them? Did it mean unconditional love, like what I felt from Tom and his parents? Or did it mean the kind of loyalty where I was expected to keep my mouth shut and play the role they had chosen for me? Tom noticed I was quieter than usual. He was gentle about it though, never pushing me to talk when I wasn't ready. One night, we were sitting on the couch, his arm draped over my shoulders while we watched some crime drama that neither of us were really paying attention to. "They still messaging you?" he asked softly. "Yeah," I said. "They want to talk before Christmas." "Are you going to?" I hesitated. "I don't know. I mean, what's the point? I'll say my piece, they'll deny everything, and then they'll call me ungrateful again. I'm tired of it." Tom kissed the top of my head. "You don't have to do anything you don't want to do, Sarah." "That's the problem," I said. "I don't know what I want." A few days later, my phone rang while I was on my lunch break at work. It was my mom. I stared at the screen for a moment before picking up. I wasn't in the mood to talk, but I also knew avoiding her forever wasn't realistic. "Hi, Mom," I said. Sarah, her voice was softer than I expected. She always started out this way, like she was trying to lull me into some false sense of comfort. "How are you?" "I'm fine," I said flatly. "What's going on?" "We need to fix this," she said. "It's not right for us to go into Christmas with all this tension. Your father and I want the whole family together, including you." I bit the inside of my cheek. "So it's about Christmas? You don't want to have to explain to everyone why I'm not there, right?" She sighed, and I could picture her shaking her head like I was being unreasonable. "Sarah, that's not fair. We want you there because you're part of the family." I didn't answer. I wanted to ask why being part of the family only seemed to apply when it was convenient for them. I wanted to scream about how hurt I'd been for years. But I knew it wouldn't matter. I'd tried before. Mom continued, her voice tinged with frustration now. "Can't you just let this go? It's Christmas. I don't understand why you always have to hold on to things like this." "Because it's not fair, Mom," I said. I couldn't stop the words from tumbling out. "You and Dad act like Adam deserves the world and I deserve nothing. You've never treated us the same, and I'm sick of it." She let out a sharp breath. "We have always treated you fairly, Sarah." "No, you haven't," I snapped. "You've paid for everything for Adam his entire life, his rent, his flights, his mistakes. When I moved back home, you hit me with $10,000 in rent. You don't see how that's different?" "Your brother needs help," she said firmly. "You don't. You're strong, Sarah. You always have been." I felt my throat tighten. I didn't want to cry at work, but my voice broke anyway. "I'm strong because I had no other choice. You never gave me the option to depend on you the way Adam does." "Sarah," she said again, her voice softening. "I'm sorry you feel that way. But we can't go back and change the past. We just want you with us for the holidays." Her words felt hollow, like they had been plucked from a script. She wasn't apologizing for what she'd done. She was apologizing for how I felt, as if the problem was my perception instead of her actions. "I don't know if I'm coming," I said. "Sarah," she started, but I ended the call before she could say anything else. That night, Tom found me in the kitchen, sitting at the table with my head in my hand. I had been replaying the conversation with my mom over and over in my mind, picking apart every word, every tone, every silence. "What happened?" Tom asked gently, pulling out a chair to sit across from me. "They want me to come for Christmas," I said. She didn't apologize though, not really. It's like they don't even understand what they've done. Tom sighed, reaching for my hand. "Do you want to go?" I shook my head. "I don't know. I mean, part of me wants to. It's Christmas. I don't want to lose my whole family, but it hurts to keep pretending nothing's wrong," he finished for me. "Yeah," I said softly. Tom squeezed my hand. "Then don't go, Sarah. You don't have to keep putting yourself in situations that hurt you." "But if I don't go, they'll tell everyone I'm being selfish," I said. "They'll make it sound like I'm the problem. My mom knows how to twist things so it looks like I'm the bad guy." Tom was quiet for a moment, like he was trying to figure out the right words. Then he said, "It doesn't matter what they tell other people. You know the truth?" As Christmas got closer, I felt the pressure mounting. My mom called twice more, leaving voicemails that all sounded the same. She wanted to smooth things over. She wanted the family to be together. She wanted me to stop holding on to the past. I didn't call her back. The day before Christmas Eve, my dad finally sent a message. "This has gone on long enough, Sarah. You're coming to Christmas. We'll talk it out like adults and then we'll move forward." It wasn't a request. It was an order. I stared at the message for a long time before I deleted it. On Christmas Day, Tom and I packed the car and drove back to his parents' cabin. Linda greeted us with a warm hug and a plate of cookies, like she had been waiting for us all morning. "I'm so glad you're here," she said, squeezing my arm. I smiled, but it didn't reach my eyes. The truth was, I felt guilty for not being with my parents, even though I knew they would spend the day pretending everything was perfect. I imagined them at the dinner table, Adam laughing about something while my mom passed around the mashed potatoes. I wondered if they would tell everyone I was too busy to come or if they would say I was just being difficult again. Tom must have noticed I was lost in thought because he leaned down and whispered, "Hey, you don't have to feel bad about choosing yourself." "I know," I said quietly. That afternoon, we sat by the fire and opened presents with his family. Linda gave me a handmade scarf, the softest thing I had ever felt, and Tom's dad handed me a mug that said, "You're part of the family, whether you like it or not." Everyone laughed, but I nearly cried. For the first time in my life, I realized what Christmas could feel like: warm, easy, free of tension. Nobody was walking on eggshells, nobody was keeping score. It was love, simple and unconditional. I looked over at Tom and smiled. Maybe this was what family was supposed to feel like. Christmas passed quietly, and for once, I didn't feel like I was tiptoeing through a minefield. Tom's family made the holiday feel effortless, with no harsh words, no strained smiles, and no passive-aggressive comments to ruin the mood. When I woke up the next morning, I felt peaceful, as if I had finally learned what it meant to exhale after holding my breath for far too long. But that peace didn't last forever. When I turned my phone back on after 2 days, I found exactly what I had been expecting: missed calls, voicemails, and texts. My family had spent the holiday together, and my absence hadn't gone unnoticed. My mom sent a message late Christmas evening. "We missed you today, Sarah. Your absence really hurt your father." That was it. There were no details, no effort to understand why I had stayed away, and no apology for the ways they had made me feel so small. Instead, the blame had shifted back to me. I was the problem. I had hurt them. It was as if my parents lived in a completely different version of reality, where my feelings didn't exist unless they inconvenienced someone else. I ignored the message and went back to living my life, but the guilt lingered like smoke in the back of my mind. I had made my choice, and part of me knew it was the right one. But why did it still feel so wrong? A few days later, my phone rang while Tom and I were watching a movie. It was my brother Adam. His name on the screen gave me pause. Adam rarely called me. Most of the time, he stayed out of any conflict with our parents, preferring to keep his hands clean. "Should I answer it?" I asked Tom quietly. "It's up to you," he said, squeezing my hand. I hesitated before swiping the screen. "Hello? Sarah," Adam said, his voice calm but clipped. "What the hell happened?" I sighed. "What do you mean?" "I mean Christmas," he said, irritation creeping into his voice. "Mom and Dad were a wreck. They said you just ignored them and ruined the holiday." I felt my jaw tighten. "I didn't ruin anything, Adam. I chose not to come because I'm tired of being treated like I don't matter." Adam let out a heavy breath, the kind he always used when he thought I was being difficult. "Why do you have to make everything a big deal, Sarah? They're trying their best." "No, they're not," I shot back. "Adam, they treat you like you're perfect. They pay for everything you need, and they've never expected you to stand on your own. Meanwhile, I get $10,000 in rent thrown at me the second I get a new job. Do you not see how unfair that is?" "You're just jealous," Adam said. The words were as familiar as an old scar. "You always have been." That word again, jealous, as if wanting fairness made me the villain. I gripped the phone tighter, my voice shaking now. "I'm not jealous, Adam. I'm exhausted. You get to make mistakes and get help. I don't. I have to be perfect just to earn the bare minimum, and I'm tired of it. Maybe if you stopped acting like a victim, they'd treat you differently," Adam said flatly. I felt like he'd slapped me. For a moment I couldn't even respond. It was like every ounce of hope I'd ever held for my brother shattered in that one sentence. He didn't understand. He never had. To him, I was the problem. I was the one making waves. I had been holding on to the idea that Adam might one day see things for what they were, but I realized then that I had been wrong. "Goodbye, Adam," I said softly, hanging up before he could respond. I set the phone on the table and buried my face in my hands. I didn't want to cry, but the tears came anyway. Tom pulled me into his arms without saying a word, letting me get it all out. "He doesn't get it," I whispered after a while. "He never will." "I know," Tom said quietly. "But that's not your fault, Sarah." In the days that followed, I kept thinking about that phone call with Adam. I replayed his words over and over again in my head, each time hoping they might hurt a little less, but they didn't. I thought about how close we had been when we were kids. Back then, Adam was my hero. He was the one who taught me to ride a bike and who stayed up with me late into the night playing video games. He was the one who stood up for me when I got picked on at school. I used to think Adam was the only person who really understood me, but somewhere along the way, things had changed. My parents' favoritism had driven a wedge between us, and Adam had been more than happy to accept the privileges they handed him without question. I wanted to believe that deep down, he still cared about me, but the truth was he had chosen their side. Maybe he didn't see it that way. Maybe he thought he was just keeping the peace, but to me, it felt like a betrayal. I missed the brother I used to have, but I wasn't sure that version of him even existed anymore. One evening, Tom and I sat out on the balcony, wrapped in blankets as we watched the city lights. The air was crisp and cold, but it felt refreshing, like a reset button after a long day. "I've been thinking," I said quietly. Tom looked over at me. "About what?" "About cutting contact with them," I said. The words felt heavy, but saying them out loud also felt freeing. "I mean, not completely, not yet. But maybe I need to put some real distance between us. I need a break from all of this." Tom nodded. "You don't have to explain it to me, Sarah. I think it's the right move." I feel guilty," I admitted. "They're still my family, and if I walk away, they'll tell everyone I'm the problem. I don't want to lose the rest of my family too." Tom reached over and took my hand. "Sarah, you can't control what they say about you. You can't change the way they see things. But you don't deserve to keep putting yourself through this just to make them happy." I swallowed hard, staring out at the skyline. "I don't know if I'm strong enough to do it." "You are," Tom said firmly. "You've been strong your whole life, Sarah, but this time, you're being strong for yourself. That's different." I let his words sink in. Maybe he was right. For years, I had tried to prove myself to my parents, bending over backward to earn their love and approval. But no matter how hard I tried, it was never enough. Maybe it was time to stop trying. Maybe it was time to choose myself instead. That night, I sat down and wrote a message to my parents. "Mom, Dad, I need some space for a while. I love you both, but I can't keep pretending that everything is fine when it isn't. I'm tired of feeling like I don't matter. I'm tired of being compared to Adam. I need time to figure out what kind of relationship I want with you, and until then, I need to step back. I hope you can understand." I stared at the message for a long time before I hit send. When I finally did, I felt a strange sense of relief, like I had let go of something I'd been holding on to for too long. Tom sat beside me, his hand on my knee. "How do you feel?" "Scared," I said honestly. "But also lighter." "That's a good start," he said with a smile. And for the first time in years, I believed him.